So why do you have what we call limiting beliefs? And even more importantly, how can we replace those limiting beliefs with limitless beliefs? Beliefs that actually allow you to create what you want in your life. Beliefs that actually empower you, allow you to be in states like joy, peace, and happiness, and love. Allow you, because you're in those states, to start bringing in things like massive manifestations, dream partners, being able to live in the place you want to live, and continually upgrading yourself to higher and higher levels. How do we actually go about that? Well, first we need to look into how limited beliefs are formed. So in this video, I'm going to be going over why it is you even have limited beliefs. Because you may have no recollection of like sitting down one day and being like, okay, I'm going to have this belief and that's pretty limited. All right, put that in there. And here's another limited belief. Let's put that in there. I'm sure that never happened. I don't remember doing that. And I'm sure you haven't as well. So how did we get these limited beliefs in the first place? And how can we start to move in a way that allows us to uproot those limited beliefs, remove those roots, and replace them with beliefs that actually serve us? Replace them with beliefs that allows us to access happiness, joy, peace, gratitude easily. Because most people on the planet right now cannot access those states easily. They're not living in those states. They're visiting them every now and then. And there's a huge difference between living in a place of absolute joy and peace and gratitude, loving what you do, loving your work, loving the people in your life, loving where you're going, but also loving where you're at the same time. There's very few people who live in that place. There are people who simply vacation to that place from time to time. But when you replace the limited beliefs and you replace them with the limitless beliefs, that's when you start living in the place you used to only vacation to, and you vacation to the places you used to live in, which is more those less desirable things. You're only visiting them every now and then, so you have a contrast of what else is out there. But that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is go over why we have limited beliefs, some things you can do to become more limitless in your beliefs, and then I'm going to give you an additional resource that will help you completely rewire all of this, a deep dive into this, into what's called your subconscious mind, which we'll get into in a moment. So first and foremost, how did we get these limited beliefs? Because like I said, you didn't sit down one day and go like, okay, let's wire that belief in there and let's wire that belief in there. You never sat down and went, I chose to feel limited around money. I chose to have the belief that money doesn't grow on trees. And even though I don't want to believe that, I know that belief is playing out. Or you didn't program the belief intentionally that I'm going to be scared of this type of person, or I'm going to not be able to trust people, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, the beliefs that are causing you to be held back in your life, right? You didn't program those in. And so first, what I want to let you know is that it's not actually your fault if you have limited beliefs at this time. However, it is only your responsibility to change the situation. It isn't our fault that we were given limited beliefs, and I'll go over how we got them and you'll see why, but it is absolutely no one else's responsibility other than ours to go about changing these beliefs. And in this video, you're going to learn how to actually do that, including getting some additional resources. I'm going to give you 2 things, including, again, how to rewire your subconscious that are going to allow you to change that. And at that point, it just becomes your choice to either live with the limited beliefs that you currently have, or to do something proactively, take responsibility, and start changing them so that your life begins to change. Now, limiting beliefs came into your life because from the ages of about 0 to 7, and this number varies, sometimes it can go all the way up to like our teenage years, a lot of times maybe it'll stay at 7, but essentially from 0 to 7, you are in what's called a theta brainwave state when you're a child. Now, I don't want to get confusing with this and use confusing jargon language, but essentially that means your brain is like a sponge. Like you're absorbing everything around you. And it makes total sense. You're a kid, you're in this new world, you don't really know how things work, so you need to learn. You need to be able to absorb in almost like this hypnotic, meditative state. And so a lot of young kids are in this state. You ever kind of looked at a kid who's like 3 and they're kind of like zoning it out of space, like someone who's like really in the moment, really present? Well, there's a reason for that, because they're in theta brainwave state. They are absorbing the environment around them. And guess what? That also includes the beliefs and the energy of the people around them. Now, I want you to think back to your parents or your teachers or the adults and people that you were around a lot from 0 to 7. Did they have limited beliefs? Or were they limitless? Were they talking about abundance, guys, and they were talking about how you can manifest easily and how you're essentially a divine, infinite, co-creative being? No, I'm going to just take a swing here, a guess that it wasn't that. That maybe it was more life is unfair, life is struggle, abundance odds. Some people have, some people don't. Money doesn't grow on trees. You're a bad boy or bad girl if you do this, whatever else it is. I'm just going to wager here, make a pretty safe bet that it was more stuff like that, right? And so no wonder you have limited beliefs because you were fed limited beliefs, usually unconsciously from the adults that were in your life from 0 to 7. And because you didn't have discernment at that time, you were like a sponge because you were in this almost permanent theta brainwave state, which again just means you absorbed everything around you. There was no filter in your brain that said, hey, no, don't take that on board. It was just like, yeah, bring that in, bring that in, bring that in. Especially if it was repeated over and over again. And also understand it's not something that needs to be repeated verbally, it was the energy behind it. So if you had a parent, for example, just to make this very simple, that had an obvious lack mentality, you didn't, as a kid, which by the way, you're very intuitive as a kid, you can feel things, and I'm sure you can remember this, maybe a little bit at least, you feel things, right? So if the energy's off, you feel off. It's kind of like, you know, when you have a pet, like a dog that knows when you're upset. Kids also pick up on this very, very easily. But let's say there's a lot of lack mentality in your household when you were a kid. You're going to be picking up on that whether it's verbalized or not. If that energy is being resonated out, oh, I got the bills to pay, I'm never making them on time, or I'm just making it, you know, when will we have enough? When will we be able to do this? We never have enough. If that kind of energy is being projected out, and you can replace that for any other kind of area of life, health, relationships, you know, maybe you grew up in a household where one of your parents or an adult cursed the opposite sex, right? Oh, all women are like this. Oh, all men are like this, and projected that energy out. Well, that's absorbed into your subconscious mind because you're a kid coming into this world designed to pick up on things because you need to know how to operate in the world. But for a lot of us, we had parents and people around us who also were raised in a way that gave them beliefs that they're projecting out subconsciously that aren't that helpful, to be honest. And so this is where you pick these things up, and they gave you limited beliefs. Again, it would be great if we all had parents who were just like, you know what, we live in abundance, and they demonstrated it. Again, it's not just the words, were they actually demonstrating it? You know, for example, you ever have your parents say this, you know, you can be anything you want. I'll use myself as an example. You can be anything you want, little Dave. You can do anything. You can be anything. You know, you are amazing. But then see your parent turn around and completely not demonstrate that for themselves? Well, kids pick up on that. You can't just say one thing to a kid and then not demonstrate it yourself and then clearly not feel that same way about yourself and then expect them to not see that, right? And not feel that, right? But if a kid was genuinely being told, you know what? You are such a divine being. You are just, you know, just the universe that is coming about in this particular way, in this particular body. You are unlimited. You really can do everything, anything that you set your mind to, etc., etc. And then the parent goes off and is living a life like that. Well, guess what's going to be absorbed by the kid, right? But again, if you're watching this, most likely that wasn't how it went for you as a kid. Thus, you have these limiting beliefs. So this is how the limiting beliefs were formed. And so just to see, of course, it's not your fault that that happened. Also, not to blame your parents or any of the adult figures around, because here is the secret. They'll let you, you know, I hate to break it to you, but they weren't aware they were doing this either. They were doing the best that they could with the awareness they had at the time. Most likely whatever happened in their childhood or whatever growing up led them to believing what they believed, which they just parroted out when they were parents or they were around the kids or whatever else it is. So there's no one to go and blame. This is not a tool to go victimize. It is just a tool for awareness. This is how it was formed. And we start from this place so we know where we're at. We know how this happened, but then we can make a new choice to change it. Like I said, it's not necessarily your fault that you have some of the limited beliefs that you have, but it is no one's responsibility other than yours to change them. All right, so how do we actually do that? How do we go about changing it? Well, I'm going to give you a few things here and then kind of move you towards something that's going to really, really help you if you find you have a lot of limiting beliefs and you want these more limitless beliefs. So we know that most of these were formed in childhood, and they make up what's called your subconscious mind. Now, it's, again, not to get lost in the jargon here, let me make it very simple. Your conscious mind is kind of what you're doing right now, whatever you're paying attention to consciously in this moment. So I'm right now consciously creating this video. I could consciously look in this way and take in the information here. I could consciously go this way. I can do things consciously, right? But for all the things that happen in our body, for all the things that happen in our life, we can't do it all consciously. For example, things in your body work automatically even if you're not thinking about them, like your heartbeat and your breathing and pretty much most of the functions inside your body. And it also works for your belief systems and things running in the background, because it would be way too much information to try and think all in the moment. And you can only think and concentrate on one thing at a time. So you have what's called programs in what's called your subconscious. So beneath the conscious, out of sight, is your subconscious mind. Now, the problem with trying to change from limited to limitless beliefs is you can't necessarily do it consciously. So if you go and try and be like, I don't want to feel lack anymore, I am abundant, and you try affirmations, right? And you try and force your way through like, I am abundant, I am abundant, I am abundant, I am loved, I am loved, I am loved. Guess what? It's not even getting through the doorway of your subconscious. Remember how I mentioned that brainwave state theta and how it just gave like it made you like a sponge? Well, we can actually replicate that and do things that allow us to open the doorway to the subconscious, uproot certain things, and put new programs in. Right? Like if you're on a computer and you're just on the surface level stuff and you're like on the thing, you're not going to be able to change too much of the hardware. But if you take the computer apart, you go into like the subconscious of the computer, so to speak, you take it apart and look at the programs in there and you start removing them and putting new ones in, then it's going to run differently. And that's not a perfect analogy, but I think you get the picture, right? So it can't be something that's on the surface. You're not going to walk around during your everyday and force your way to change your beliefs. Again, maybe you've been in this situation, let me know if you have, where you've used affirmations and you want to, you've done wealth affirmations, let's say, or relationship affirmations, whatever it is, right? But you don't really feel congruent to those affirmations, so you just try and you just keep listening to them. You're trying to force yourself to enjoy them. Maybe you're playing them throughout the day, but they don't seem to stick, and nothing really is changing. Why? It's because you're trying to influence your subconscious from the conscious level and the wakeful level, and it's just not going to work. We need to influence the subconscious at its level. We need to get into the subconscious, poke around a little, remove what we don't want or is stagnant. And again, some things will be harder to uproot because they're kind of like, if we use an analogy of a garden, they're really bigger and more sturdy plants because you've been running that program for a very long time. Their roots are a little deeper. But it doesn't mean they can't be uprooted, and doesn't mean we can't do things to start uprooting these plants. It will take a bit of time, but rewiring your subconscious is one of the best things you can do for your growth. It is up there with probably the best. Like shifting your identity is probably the most valuable thing you can do for your growth. And if you want to start installing limitless beliefs, it's absolutely necessary. Let me just put it this way. I have 100% certainty that if you don't rewire your subconscious mind, you are going to continue getting what you've been getting or worse. But I also, on the other end of the spectrum, have 100% confidence and certainty that if you do reprogram your subconscious mind intentionally, with like a strategy, with proven methods, your life will radically transform in a positive direction in the way you want it to. I believe in both of those statements, 100%. And so we need to go in and reprogram this if we want to actually start believing things that are more limitless and actually serve us. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 2 different resources. Now, the reason I'm not going over everything in this video is because I've already made a video that's really in depth on how to rewire the subconscious mind. So I'm going to link that down below, and also at the end of this video, I'll put a little card up that you can go watch it. Now, this is a deep dive, but again, this is a deep topic. We're going deep into our subconscious, and it gives you all the details, everything you need to know so that you can then get started on actually rewiring this and removing those limiting beliefs that are really one of the main things holding you back from where you want to go. And you can try as many things as you want, but if you don't uproot and remove those limited beliefs, those limiting beliefs, you're not going to get far or nearly anywhere. You might make tiny, tiny gains that don't amount to really anything. So that's the first thing. I'm going to put that video down below. Now, the second thing is I have a Facebook group called the Elite Transformation Experience, where I give you next steps. I teach you about my EMF program and so much more. I give other content in there that's going to help you go on a journey that's actually going to allow you to rewire your subconscious. This is something I've done for a very long time. I've helped so many people rewire their subconscious to where they're getting unbelievable results now. Recently we actually had someone that went through it where she wanted to leave the job she was in, but didn't know how to do it. And we were able to get her to rewire her subconscious in a way where she was able to trust that the universe had her back. She left that job with nothing else available, but she applied the natural laws of the universe, rewired her subconscious, and a week later, a better job that was much more aligned, that paid more, presented itself, and she got the job. And so these are the kind of things that can happen when you actually do this. So I'll link my Facebook group down below. Just make sure you fill out the questions if you go to join. If you don't fill out the questions and agree to the group rules, I can't submit you into the group. There's a lot of people who've tried to do that, and then I have to decline them going in the group. It takes 30 seconds to answer the questions though, but check out that group because we're going to be going over, again, all these transformative topics. And for those of you who are really committed to doing this, I give you next steps through our EMF program to really just finally get a hold of this and remove the limited beliefs and bring in the limitless beliefs. Now, like I promised you, here is the subconscious video on how to reprogram your subconscious mind, which I'd have you go watch next. It is a deep dive, but if you go through that whole thing, you're taking a massive, huge step in the right direction. I don't think there's a better video on YouTube than this one to doing this, so I'd go watch that next.